Thank you, Kelsey. Happy to be back with you all. My name is Ben Sondgeroth, and I am a Google certified trainer. I'm a regional ed tech coordinator from down in Illinois. So coming to you guys from down a little bit south. But really excited to be here. Really excited to continue the Google learning that we started last fall and providing support for all things Google. It's something that I am super passionate about. I live, eat, sleep, breathe all things Google. It's my job to help educators in their fields and leverage the Google tools effectively. But it's also my job to work with everybody to know how to use the Google tools effectively. So tonight we're going to look at Google Drive. I'm really excited about this topic because it's really the engine that drives all of Google apps for education, all for Google apps for workspace, and then just all the Google apps that everybody has access to if you open up a Gmail account. So if you have a Google account, you're able to access all of these different fun tools that we're going to go over actually over the subsequent weeks from here as well. So this is kind of a good launching point since Drive is the straw that stirs the drink. So as Kelsey said, I'm going to share my screen so that way we can all kind of interact with this presentation together. You'll be able to kind of follow along if you want to. If you're watching this on a recording too, I might encourage you maybe to like have Drive open so you can kind of see what things are going on as we're going, or just sit back and enjoy the show as we kind of talk about Google for the next 50 minutes or so. So as I said, my name is Ben Sondgeroth. There's my contact information on there. Should you have any questions or anything and want to follow up, I'm happy to follow up via email. I'm a Google certified trainer, like I said. I've been that for about 8 years now, and so I've been in this Google world for a long time. And I actually have not. Yeah, it's just a fun place to live. That I just really like this. And as I was saying before, it's not just about education here either. Like I use Google Drive for all of my personal life stuff as well. So a lot of these skills that I'm showing in here, and a lot of these how-tos that I'll show, they transfer over and bleed over into my personal life as well. Like I use Google Drive to store things. I use it to collaborate with my friends on different things. Just as an example, we're going to talk about sharing files and how we're able to collaborate on those. And then we have a couple of sessions coming up about docs and slides and other things on other Google apps. But right now we've got a Google Drive file that's a Google Sheet that myself and a couple of buddies are working on. That's planning a golf outing. Like that has nothing to do with school or education or anything. That's a completely personal thing. And we use that, and we use the access of collaboration and the collaboration tools to get that done. I've got some other little anecdotes that I'll throw in as we go. But as I said, so today what we're going to do is we're going to, or I should say, what we're going to look at this evening is we're going to look at Google Drive. Okay, so we're going to do a quick demonstration, sharing of information. If there's any questions at all, I am happy to answer them at all. And so, feel free, drop them in the chat or unmute and ask those. So let's get started. So what is Google Drive? Let's talk about, the what and the why behind Google Drive specifically. And so what it is it's a cloud storage. Okay, so this is, you've probably heard this mentioned, and especially like recently in the pandemic, like with the shift towards everything, being cloud-based and being computer-based and everything like that. You've probably heard the term cloud storage before. So I just want to elaborate on that a little bit. And what that means is you're not just like actually putting things up into an actual cloud. But this is what this is you're sending your information that you create, your documents, your files, anything like that. And you're actually putting them into your Google Drive. And then that's being stored on Google's computers, their hard drives, their servers. Okay, so where you might save it to your My Computer folder on your PC, instead of it being physically like on your physical device in front of you, it's actually off in some giant warehouse that's filled with servers in the middle of nowhere. Like I think they've got a data center in Atlanta and Kansas and California. Like they've got them all over the country. And they're literally football fields long, filled with big giant servers that are got everybody's information on it. It's really like hard to wrap your brain around what that actually looks like, so we're not going to spend too much time on it. Just know that it goes somewhere else and it's not on your machine, which is good because that means that if your machine fails, you don't lose everything. If it's in the cloud, then you have access to it from any device as long as you log into your account. And that's where you get it, that it's private and it's also shareable, which those could be a little bit oxymoronic there. But it's private because it's just yours. Nobody can get into it. Google doesn't have access to those files. So even though you're putting it on their machines, they don't have access to that. It is yours. Okay, so anything you upload to Google Drive, no one else has access to it unless, and this is where the shareable comes in, you give it to them. Okay, so that's where we're going to get to really the fun stuff about Google, is that I can collaborate on different pieces of work. I can collaborate on different documents. I can collaborate with things that I put into Google Drive and have that happen instantaneously. Kelsey and I could, share a Google Doc and we could go back and forth, on it. So say we wanted to work out a bunch of different dates for workshops. What we probably should have done is put them all into a Google Doc and then, be able to share them effectively and see when we made edits and changes in real time. But then we can see that happening at the same time. It's shareable. We can both make those changes, which is super handy. It's also able to be connected between devices. So this is where, like, back when I started using Google in 2013, this was like a game changer, and it still is a game changer because you can access Google on any device: your phone, your computer, your PC that's over there, your Chromebook, iPad, an Android tablet. Doesn't matter. If you can get an internet connection and you can get the Google Drive app for like mobile, or you can get to drive.google.com and sign in, you're able to access all of your files. So that's another thing about the cloud, is that it connects across devices. So as a great example of this, when I was coaching, I would have the Google Sheets app on my phone, and players would hand me, say, money for hats. And so I would take their money, and then before I had Google on my phone, or I had Google Drive on my phone and Google Sheets on my phone, what would happen is they would hand me the money, I'd throw it in my coaching bag, someone would pay with cash, I'd get to school the next day to check it off the list, and I'd have to be like, who was that gave me that money? Was it Joey? I think it was Joey. And then like Joey hands me his money that day, and I'm like, oh crap, that wasn't Joey. Like, who was it? As soon as I had the ability to access that file from my phone, I would pull it up, tap the name right next to him, hit the X, boom, done. Then I didn't have to worry about going back to my computer and updating it later. So super helpful to go across devices. And that change happens. If you make a change on this computer, it updates all across all your other devices at the same time. Okay. And then different organizational opportunities. So what I mean by that is you're able to organize files in different formats. We're going to get into that in a lot more detail. So, okay, so why Google Drive? Well, because we're able to just do everything with it. Like, you can download, you can upload, you can put Word files in, you can put all sorts of Microsoft files into it. You can have access to those. You can actually edit Microsoft files in there without converting them over to a Google file. I'll show you that later. And then also it's taking organizational skills that we've all used in the computer world before, where we've organized maybe our documents and our My Computer folders on our PCs, but we're just taking that and we're shifting it over into the web. And so one of the things that I think trips a lot of people up the first time they use Drive is that instead of opening up, and I have a Mac, so I apologize, it looks slightly different, I'm sure, but you can see that I have like my documents here. And it's a bit different than what it looks like on a PC, but these are all documents that are saved to my computer, okay? But instead, if I want any of those to be cloud saved and have access to them at all times, I have to look at them through a window that looks like this. And that's a bit of a trip for somebody to get over for the first couple of times. But after a little while using it, you get used to it pretty quick of just dragging, dropping, putting things in there. And you might be like, Ben, I thought you just said like you only use Google Drive. How do you possibly have so many files on your computer? Are you a liar? No, I swear I'm not. These are just like logos and things that I need for like other programs when I don't use Google on the rare occasion. So just want to make sure I don't seem like a hypocrite there. All right. So that's the what and the why behind that. And there's a Docs logo there. We'll get rid of that in real time. So Google Drive. So what are we looking at with our first skills here? Okay, so this is the point where I have the slideshow. I'll actually drop it in the chat, and then I'll put the link in here. So Kelsey, if you want to save that and put it in any notes or anything like that, you can. So that's one of the benefits of Google Drive, is that the file is live for anybody to see, should you choose for people to be able to see it. So those of you that are maybe watching and you want to look at it right now, you can click on that link and you would be in the slides with me. If you're watching this on recording and you look at the notes that Kelsey posts with this, you'd be able to actually click on that link and you would be able to get to this file, unless I took it away. But I don't ever do that. I always put it out there and keep it live forever. Is kind of my policy. So you can have access to that and you can look at my slides. So let's do this. So instead of going through a boring slideshow where I just click and talk about different things, I actually like to jump into the tool and explore it and show you where everything's at. So that way you get a really good idea. We might kind of check back in on the slideshow from time to time, but really the slides are just a really good backup resource as opposed to like a demo where I am, sharing things and, just, all that. So let's go into, we'll open up a new tab first, okay? Because it's important to kind of start with where do we go from here? Because maybe you're a new user to this, or, you want some little tricks to be able to get into your Google Drive perhaps a little bit quicker. And so one of the things I always have mine bookmarked up at the top. You would be able to do that. I'll show you that in a second. But to get to Google Drive, you type in drive.google.com or google.com/drive. Either one of those actually gets you there. So I could type that into the Omni box at the top. But what I actually like to do is go over to what I lovingly call the Ice Cube tray. In the top right hand corner of the screen, which is actually called the app launcher, but I prefer to call it the Ice Cube tray. And so we click on that, and then you can see that I have all of my different Google apps available to me, including Google Drive. So Google Drive should be there for everybody. Even if you're in a personal Gmail account, you should see it there, because when you open up a new tab in Google Chrome, that's key, you have to be in Google Chrome for this, you should see the app launcher, and then you can select Google Drive, and that will get you to your Google Drive.
And I have a question in the chat for you. Do you have a Gmail or an email account with Google for you to be able to use Google Drive?
So that's an interesting question. You can actually, so you actually asked kind of a tough one, but it's a good one. So you do have to have a Google account, okay? So a Gmail account is the most traditional way of getting a Google account. So you can go to google.com and select, I want to sign up for an account, and then you would sign up and register for a Google account. The more kind of advanced thinking behind this too, and it's not so much that it's advanced, I should say, but if I wanted to, so say you had a Yahoo account or a Outlook account even, or any number of different email accounts that exist out in the world right now. And we have Comcast as our cable provider. So I have a Comcast.net email account. You can actually, through the sign up process, say, I already have an email address. So if people know that you use that Comcast account, you can actually sign up for a Google account and basically create a Google account that is tied to that Comcast email. And so you don't have to change and say, like, all of a sudden you have to blast out to all your friends and family and say, hey, I've got a new account. Here's my new email address, because they've been emailing your Comcast account for years. You can actually just, it's essentially like cloning, where like you could take that Comcast account and just make it a Google account, and then you would log into all your Google stuff with that Comcast account, which is kind of cool. So it wasn't a hard question, but it was like, there's another level to that is pretty neat. You can take those old accounts that you've already used and you can create a Google account from them. So good question. But traditionally, if you have a Gmail account, which a lot of people do, that means you get access to all this stuff. So, all right. So let's look inside of Google Drive here. Let's do a couple of tours here. So this is actually my training domain. So this is not my personal one or my work one. This is the one where I do all of these workshops in. So that way you guys don't have to see the disaster that is my Google Drive account. But so this is what everybody's, if you have a Google for Education account. So if you're a teacher, you'll probably see this. If you have a personal account, it might appear slightly different. There's a couple of little differences in there, not much, but just a couple of tweaks. I can point those out to you as we go. But if you don't see something on yours that is on mine, just probably bet that it's because you're in a personal account and not an education account. So just a couple of small minor differences there. All right, so as we're looking at our Drive window here, there's a couple of things I want to kind of point to your attention. First up is, where do your files live? Okay, so your files, when you upload something or you create something in Google Drive, they live down here in this area. So if you are brand new to this and you don't have anything in your Drive, congratulations. You probably just have like one like test folder that they usually put in there, and that'll appear here. Okay, but when you do start creating files and uploading files and creating folders to organize things, this is what it will look like if you do a ton of stuff like I do. Like I have 14 gig in here, so lots of things. Okay, this is where it all lives. It's down here. Now, another thing though is you might be looking at it and say, mine looks different than yours. Mine doesn't look like it's in a list. Okay, well, that's because I am a list view guy. I like list view as opposed to the other option, which is actually called grid view. Okay, so yours might look something more like maybe a little bit bigger on the tiles down here, but if it looks like this and has big squares and looks like icons, that's because you're in what's called grid view. Okay, so you can toggle back and forth between the two views by looking up in the top right-hand corner of the screen, and you can see where my mouse is here, where it says list view, and if I do that, it'll switch over to this way, and then you can see it looks like that, and it'll hover over top of it and it'll say grid view. Now, the biggest difference that I know between these two is if it's in list view, you get the whole name of the folder and most of the name of the file, as opposed to grid view where it gets cut off. And for me, that's annoying. Like, I need to see the whole name. Like, I want to see the whole thing. Okay, so I'm a more of a list view person. The other reason I like list view as well is it gives you more information about the folder or the file, like who is the owner of that, and then when did you last modify that. Okay, so I can look and see like, oh, I own that folder and I opened it up for the last time on December 15th of 2020. Okay, so just it gives you more information than what you would get if you just have it in grid view. See, I don't have any of that extra information. So that's like some of the differences between the views. The other thing is the quick access up at the top. Everybody's going to have that. If you don't have it, it might be because you don't have any files in your account right now. But if you have files, the quick access will be there. What that is actually an intuitive artificial intelligence Google thing. Okay, so what it does is Google actually has the smarts and the brains to scan your drive and kind of recognize what you've been working on recently and what you might want to work on coming up. It's really kind of creepy sometimes. So as an example, I just used this template to create the slideshow from this one, and then I like kind of changed it around and all that stuff. So I have multiple different versions of actually the same thing. So I'm actually going to tell this isn't a helpful suggestion. So hopefully that gets it away. And it kept it right there, but oh, that's a different one. So you can see there's all sorts of different files that come up here in like my quick access. So let me give you an idea of how this works. Okay, so I said it like might give you helpful suggestions as well. So every Monday I lead a meeting with my team for my job. And every Monday we have a running agenda, the same Google Doc. We use the same Google Doc every Monday. Just keep adding to it. Okay. That Google Doc on Monday mornings when I open up my Google Drive is always the first file that shows up in quick access. When I open up my Google Doc, or when I open up my Google Drive when I get to work on Tuesdays, that file is no longer there. But as soon as I open it up on the following Monday, that's the first file that's there. Because Google has learned that every Monday I open up that Google Doc. And so it's actually super helpful, because instead of having to scroll through my whole Google Drive to find that file, it's just right there. And so I double click on it and open it up. Another example is that if Kelsey and I were collaborating on something, this has happened to me before too, and we're working on a Google file together. I haven't been in it for a while, but if she makes a ton of changes, I've actually seen it where it pops up and it says, Kelsey has edited this today. And that's Google's way of being like, hey, this document's changed a bunch. We know you were in here before. Do you want to check and see what's going on in it? It's kind of crazy, like a little creepy, but like also like super smart too at the same time. Like it kind of blows my brain that happens. So that's what the quick access is. You can actually turn it off if you want. If you don't like it, you can go into the settings and you can turn it off. I've grown used to it. It's been there now for a little bit over a year, maybe 2 years. And so I actually kind of like it, but there is an application to turn it off in the settings if you wanted to. Other things kind of as we're like doing a quick search here of this. So over on the left-hand side, now this is going to be our main toolbar here. The new tab, this is where we're going to create things. Okay, so cleverly named new with a plus sign. This is where we're going to go should we want to create a new anything in Google. Do we want to create a new folder, which is what we're going to cover here shortly? Yes. Do we want to upload different files? Sure, we can do it from this way. Or do we want to do the more traditional thing that we do with Google, and do we want to open up a new Google Doc, Google Sheet, a slide, or a form? Absolutely. So I can select any of these and then it'll open it up. It's kind of like if you're used to using Microsoft products and you go to your Microsoft Word and you open up, you double click on that and it pops open and it says, do you want to create a new project? Like, yes, I want to create a new document. You open it up and then the window pops up. Well, instead of having to go to different like Word and PowerPoint and, Publisher, anything like that, Excel, what you can actually do is you're just launching that from Drive. So I'm going into the new, and then I'm going to Google Docs, or I'm going to Google Slides or Sheets. Okay, so that's what we're doing in that instance. Okay, you can also create your folders here. So that's what new is. Down here, So this is where we get a little bit different between a personal account and a Google for Workspace account, which would be an education account, or if you had Google for Business, it would be in here too. But you have My Drive and then shared drives. Okay, so My Drive, this is actually going to be, if we click this little tree here, that's going to give us just another view of this window over here. Okay, this is helpful because if I'm in, say, this folder, that's not a great example. Let's say, I'm trying to think, this one. Yeah, and then we'll go into this folder. And so I've like gone now from like multiple folders, and I'm like, I want to go to like another one, but I want to go quickly. Okay, you can click on this little down arrow here, this caret, and then you can see all your folders, and then I could quickly drop into the blog post folder and just go right over to it. So I don't have to like hit back a bunch of times to find it. I can just click on it and then get there. Okay. Now the one underneath that is shared drives. That's only going to be for Google for Workspace accounts. Okay, so that's going to be your Google Apps for Education, or if you're a business that's using Google tools and you have a Google for Business account, you would have shared drives access. I'm not going to go into that today because it's a lot, like it's similar but different at the same time. You can essentially think about this. Lots of businesses or schools have shared drives on the server. So like we would call it our P drive or our Atom server or whatever. And you would share stuff to the main server, right? And then everybody could have access to that. That's what a shared drive is. It's pretty cool, but it's kind of, like I said, it's pretty niche. Honestly, not a lot of people even use it. So I'm going to avoid it because it's not really part of what we want to talk about today. But that's what that is if you're curious. The priority tab at the top is also new. I'm not going to focus much on that either. But what the priority tab does is this is a place where you can actually create what are called workspaces. So workspaces are slightly different than what a folder is. A workspace you can actually create, say we're collaborating on a project. So Kelsey and I are collaborating on a project. And we are going to have 4 or 5 Google Docs, but then we're also going to have like 3 or 4 Google Drive folders. And we want it all in one area. So it's like quick for me to be like, hey, I know I want to go work on that project. Then I can create this workspace that is just like a quick, like one-stop shop. So I don't have to kind of be searching all over for all the different files. So that's what the priority area is. You can create those. Again, we're not going to go into any more detail than that because I think it's kind of Google Drive 2.0, and it's been around for a while, and I haven't seen it really take off either. So it's kind of one of those things where we're just Google's liable to take it away from us at any given moment, just because of underutilization, I think. So there's that. Continuing down here, okay, we have shared with me, and this is going to be a big one. Okay, so shared with me is where all of the files that, I bet you can guess it, get shared with you end up. Okay, so this means that, like I said, Google Drive is collaborative. So if I'm working on a project with Kelsey and she shares a file with me, it's going to appear here. Okay, and it's going to be in shared with me. So when she sends it to me, I have to go into the shared with me area to then locate that file to then edit it. It'll also appear in my email, but if I delete that email or whatever and I can't find it, I have to go into the shared with me area. So as an example, today I actually shared a template from my personal account over to this account, to my training domain. So you can see this template is for the one that I made the slides with. So I had it download, I had it saved in my Google Drive on my personal account. I shared it with my training domain. And then now I'm able to go in here and see it, and I can open that up and I have access to it. Okay. So that's where it goes when somebody says, hey, I shared that with you. You want to look in the shared with me area. Okay. Now, here's
and maybe you're going to cover this in the future, but a question that came up is when people are sharing things, some things I share, but I want people to see, but I don't want them to touch. I don't want them to change anything.
Sure.
And I'm seeing that commented in the chat. Anything you're going to tell us, or will you be covering that later on about how to make sure that other people can't change my document necessarily, or
absolutely
allow them to?
So I'll cover it right now. That's fine. It's a good moment to kind of break into that. So for example, let's use, we'll go into that file. So actually, it's a good example. We can use, well, it's right there in my quick access because it is one of the quick access ones. But the other one that's down here, so you can see how the personal Gmail account looks a little bit different than my education account. So you can see it's just slightly different. I guess the priority is not in the, it's not in personal account. So, all right. So the next one down though that I was going to show you anyways, that's over here, is recent. So this is actually like a good little transition into your question as well, but also to show the next tab. So one of the things that when you get to have tons of stuff in your Google account, like I do, you want to find what you were just recently working on. You can use the recent tab, and that's going to show you all the files in the chronological order in which you opened them up. So you can see, like, I looked for a Google Drive, or I had a template that's here. And so that was the most recently opened file from this account. So that was a nice quick way to find, like, I was just working on that yesterday. Like, you can go into recent and you can find it quickly. Now, as far as locking down that file, so what you're going to do is go to share on any document that you have. So it can be a slideshow, it can be a Google Doc, it can be a spreadsheet, any of that, and also going to be a folder, which we're going to discuss here shortly. But what you can do is when you go to share, you then would type in the name of that person. So like I could type in Kelsey. So like there's Kelsey's. I can then make sure she's notified that's going to generate the email saying Ben Sondgeroth shared this slide deck with you. But then this is the key component here, is that right now it defaults to making her an editor on my slides. If I wanted to change that and just make sure she couldn't do anything to my slides, I want to change it to viewer. Okay, there's also the option to be commenter. And what that does is that allows her to add comments to the file, but not actually make any changes to it. So she could like drop in a suggestion maybe and say, hey, I think this needs to be adjusted. And I would see that as a comment, but she wouldn't be able to actually change what's there. We're going to talk about this a lot too when we get to folders, but this is something that is important to notice. So like when I do that and then I hit send, now she's going to get an email that says Ben Sondgeroth has shared this file with you, and then she'll have access to it. You can see it says person added here. So now she'll be able to see it. Now here's a big thing too, is like, how do you know if other people are on that file with you or not? Well, it's actually pretty easy. If you look at the logo in the shared option, if it has that little 2-person in it, that means it's shared with people. And just because there's 2 people in the logo right now doesn't mean that only just coincidence that there are 2 people shared on this. That's the logo depending, either way, if it's shared. If it's not shared with anybody, that's actually going to be a lock. Okay, so it'll show you that like nobody has access to that. Now, here's another question that stems from that. What if I don't want Kelsey to have access to this anymore? So I gave it to her, she looked at it, and now I say, it is mine now. You can no longer have it, okay? I can actually just go back in, hit that share button up in the top, see where her name is here, and then click where it says viewer, click on that again, and then just remove it, and now hit save. And now she no longer has access. So even though she's still got that email in her account, if she clicked on that link, it'll come up and say access revoked or no access to this file, like request access. So you pull it away, no longer do they have that. Okay, so that's a very good question and something, and you can do that. You can see here's my training domain. I made it an editor. I can pull that back. I can even make it an owner, which means that then if you make somebody an owner of a file, then they have the rights to be able to delete that file. If they're an editor, they can't delete the file. Okay, they could move it potentially out of a folder, but they can't actually delete it and like obliterate it off of the earth. If you're the owner of it though, and you delete it, you trash it, after 30 days, gone. It is no ceases to exist. So that's a thing you want to be aware of when you make an edit. So we killed a couple of birds with that stone there. So good question. All right. Now the other thing is, when we're talking about shared with me, how do you get stuff out of shared with me? Because shared with me is kind of a pain. Shared with me is difficult to organize because you really can't. It's just everything comes in like chronological order. And so if you want something that you're going to be using a lot, okay. So for example, I've got the template. Okay. So I want this template to go into my drive, because if it's in my drive, then I'm able to put it into different folders. Okay. And so this is actually something that's relatively new. It's called adding a shortcut. You used to be able to do it. It used to be called add to my drive, but now it's called add a shortcut. So if you click on it, not double click, just click once to have it highlighted. Then you get some options up at the top. And this is when you're in shared with me, including this one right here where it has the drive icon with a plus sign and it says add shortcut to drive. This is super helpful because when you select that, you're able to then put it into a folder that makes sense for that file to live. And then you're not having to continually go back to shared with me and like scroll down through 50 different Google files to find the one that you were working on 2 weeks ago. Okay. So again, you want to click on that drive icon after you have it highlighted. And then you can just select my drive, click on the arrow, find the folder that you want to add it to. So we'll put it into the blog post folder. And then we'll add a shortcut. Now it still stays in my shared with me, but now if I go back over to my drive, go to that blog post folder, there's the template. So it exists. So now I can have it kind of organized a little bit better if I wanted to. So that's a helpful way to get stuff. I think that's one of the number one questions I get asked is like, how do I get stuff out of my shared with me? You want to add a shortcut. Okay. So that way you put it into your drive, you organize it, and you can find it quicker and easier. All right. So before we get going any further, there's a couple of other things I want to do as far as like organizational tips and tricks. Okay, so like one of the things that we like to teach kids, and I actually like to teach teachers and all adult professionals, is how to be a better organizer of your Google Drive. I myself, this might be something I don't quite practice what I preach because I get kind of sloppy with my Google Drive too, but we got to show it because it is helpful for a lot of people, okay, and including our students as well. So when you're looking at you're probably used to organizing stuff in your documents or your computer, and you have these different, trees with folders and things like that. Well, you can do all of that in Drive. But one of the things that you're probably maybe kind of seeing here, because I do this so many times, is that you can actually change the different ways that your folders appear in your Drive to make them a little bit more user-friendly. So for example, if I have a folder that I use a lot, okay, so I've made a folder. So I've gone to new, folder, and now I'm going to create a folder. Okay, so I want to create a folder, and I actually already have one that's called CCHE. So let's do one summer Google workshops. Okay, so I'm going to create this folder called Summer Google Workshops. And in that folder, I'm going to put all of my Summer Google Workshops. The problem is that the Summer Google Workshops, you can only organize your folders and your icon and your files by like name. So it's either going to be descending or ascending based on the name. So that's annoying if I'm going to be using that Summer Google Workshops folder a lot because I have to continually scroll down and find it. And there it is. And every time I go into my Google Drive, I'm going to have to scroll down, find it, scroll down, find it. So here's the tip. Okay. If you already have the folder created, right click on the folder and then rename it. And then the hack here is to put a number in front of it. So you probably already saw it because I've got several that are like this. But if I put a 1 and then dash at the front, numbers supersede letters in ascending value when they're being sorted. So if you put that, rename it, and you put a number in front of it, it'll actually jump all the way up to the top. Now, mine obviously didn't go all the way to the top because K comes before S, because like any good dictionary that we learned how to read, you go down the line, right? So like 1K is higher than 1S, which is higher than 1V, okay? But it jumps to the top. This is super helpful. So I like have in my work account my 6 most like used folders, and I have them labeled 1 through 6, and they're just at the top. And it is very helpful for my day-to-day to go up and just have them there, and I don't have to keep scrolling through. Here's the next thing that's really fun. You can use emojis in your file names. So if you are somebody that likes to have fun with emojis, we'll put the cool guy face in there. And this is any emoji keyboard that you have. I just Googled some random one, but I copy that one If I go back over to my file, Summer Google Workshops, right click, rename. And instead of having the 1, I'm actually just going to paste the emoji comes in, and then the emojis go above the numbers. So you can put emojis in your file names or your folder names or even your file names. So for example, we also have up here my Google Drive, paste that same emoji in, and now it's a part of the Google Drive name or the file name too. So that's kind of cool. It's a little bit, it's pretty fun. Now here's a word of the wise. If you change the file name or the folder name and other people are shared on it with you, they also see that name change. So like they will see the emoji too, which means if you don't like somebody and they share a file with you, or you put all of their work into some folder, it's the same thing, but they have access to that and you put like the poop emoji for them, they will see the poop emoji. So don't do that because that's not good. You want to keep it clean. So, put only good emojis in there for how you think of people, because that you just don't want to do that. So, because everybody sees your changes to that. So just be aware that when you put an emoji in there, you want to make sure it's an emoji that is fitting and appropriate for the topic. So I don't know, unless maybe you're in like public sewer works, right? Then maybe that makes sense. I don't know. Anyway, so that was a really bad dad joke. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. But it is what it is. I can't help myself sometimes. So, and they also go above the numbers, like I said. So like your emojis will actually rank higher than your numbers do. So if you run out of numbers, you can always put emojis ahead of them. So just some good naming techniques with Google Drive. The last thing that you can do as well, if you right click on a folder, you can actually change the color as well. So when you right click on a folder, you can see you have the option to rename it, star it, change color, and if I change the color, the folder will also change color. I'm not much of a color coder. That doesn't work with my brain all that well, but I know a lot of people's brains like colors and like to do different color things. So you can change those color folders if you wanted to. So so that's kind of some organizational stuff when it comes to kind of renaming things and organizing your Google Drive. All right. So here's the fun stuff now. So let's talk about some more sharing. Okay. So we talked about sharing a document or a slideshow or a file. Okay. But one of the neat things that Google Drive allows us to do is share folders. Okay. And since we already went over that with the file, it's the same. And I'll just rehash it again because it's good to hear a second time if you've never used it before. But also there can become some inherent differences because when you're sharing a folder, it's really helpful because I can open this folder up and I'll add a new document in it. So again, I'll go to new and then a Google Doc. And we'll title this one Summer Workshops Outline. And then now if I go back to that folder, so I'm just using my tabs up here to navigate, give it just a second, you can see there's the file. Okay, so similarly, if we were saving something on our computer, the files would show up here. They're just showing up now in the folder in my Google Drive, and it's here and then here. So you can see that's where it lives. That's where it's organized into. Now, here's the thing that we can do with this is if we wanted to collaborate on this with somebody, okay, if I click on the name of the folder and I go to share, you can see whenever you want to share something, it's going to have that little guy with the plus sign next to his head. So I'll click on it, I'll go to share. I get that same window that we had when we shared the slideshow. Everything's the same. I can type in Kelsey's name. Actually, she's not going to come up because I haven't shared anything with her from here. So let's do I'll just do me. So I can click on that, add my name in there. You would type the Gmail account for that person that would come in, or their Google account. You can type that in there. You can actually also share things with people that don't have Google accounts, and then it'll just like only let them in. It's kind of cool. It's a nice update. Okay, but you can see. So I got the name of the person I want to share this with. I can notify them. I can write a message in, but then I can also give them different access. And this is to the folder. Okay, so this is where it gets a little bit different than when we were just sharing an individual doc. Okay, so when I'm sharing the folder with them, I can give them viewer rights, commenter rights, or editor rights for the folder. And what that means is that if whatever right I give them on the folder, they then get access to every single file that's in that folder with that editing right. Okay. So if I give Ben, and let's not make it Ben, let's make it Ryder. He's my son. He's 4. He's got a Google account. Okay. So we're going to give Ryder access to things. Okay. So we've got Ryder here because it's weird saying give Ben access when I'm Ben and all that stuff. So we're going to make Ryder here. So do we want to make Ryder an editor on this? If we do, he will be able to go into the summer workshops outline document and just start typing on it, or he'll look at it, read it, all that stuff. Like, because we're giving him editing rights at the top. So I like to equate this to. So I was a history teacher before I started doing all this stuff. So I'm a big nerd when it comes to that, and I like to think of it like the feudal system. Okay, so like when we study like kings and queens back in ancient Europe, right? Not really ancient Europe, but like medieval Europe. You had the king at the top, so you think of it like a hierarchy. Okay, so the king at the top, the king in a feudal system has access to everything. He literally has all power. And if somebody at the bottom was doing something, he is able to go all the way down to the bottom and find the peasants and take whatever he wants from them because he's the king, right? And that's why the feudal system broke. But anyways, like, he's the king, he can take whatever he wants. And so if I make Ryder editor at the top level, which is the folder, he then gets access to everything underneath of it. It's a hierarchy, okay? So you start at the top and it trickles down underneath of that, okay? So as soon as I make him editor on this and I give him access to it, now watch for a couple of changes. So as this updates here, we're going to see that there's now going to be an icon here that's got that little double person on it that I talked about earlier. And then there's also one next to the file. So that's your visual cue that other people are shared on this folder and other people have editing rights to that file. Okay. And, like if I go into Ryder now, it's going to make me sign in, I think, because I haven't been in this in a while. So. Can see in his quick access summer workshop outline, because they're like, hey, this just got shared with you. You probably want that. But then also I want to go to shared with me now. There's the folder. And when Ryder goes into it, he now has editing rights to that Google Doc. I didn't have to like separately share that Google Doc with him. He just automatically gets it. And you can see that we're both in it. So if you come for the Google Docs workshop or training, we'll be talking all about this collaboration component with Google Docs. But that's the big thing here is when you share it out, when you share a folder with somebody, they get access to it all. So why would you want to do this? Well, collaboration on projects. Like, it's amazingly helpful for collaborating on a project. When everybody just automatically has access to everything, you don't have to be sending files back and forth through email and sharing jump drives and all that stuff. Like, you just all have access to the stuff right away. Here's my personal anecdote for this. Okay. So and now it's crazy, it's going on 6 years in the fall, but when my wife and I got married, after I proposed and we started planning the wedding, I made a Google Drive folder. I then shared that Google Drive folder with her. I shared it with my mother-in-law, and I shared it with my mom and my dad. My father-in-law had a flip phone at the time, so he really could care less about Google and or planning the wedding for all that matter. But he's like, here's a check, whatever, So what we did is we used that Google Drive folder, though, to house all of our stuff for the wedding. So that way, since I gave access to all those different people, like when it came time to do the guest list, I made a Google Sheet, I put it in the folder, I formatted it to be all nice and pretty for like adding all the addresses and stuff for the guests. And then I just told my mother-in-law and I told my mom, hey, go into the Google Drive folder, find the guest list sheet, open it up, and type in all the people that you want to invite to the wedding from your side. And they did. And then what was pretty great about that was that I had access to it too. And so we could see everybody in there adding all their stuff. And then my wife and I could go through and we could delete all the people that we didn't want to invite to the wedding that our parents had put into the sheet without having to hurt their feelings until we told them we didn't send them an invite. But it was kind of nice. We just were like, nope, not them, not them, not them. Don't know who that is. And we took them all out. And it was all in one sheet because I gave them editing rights before that. Here's where it might have bite you though, okay? Is that when you give editing rights at the folder, They see everything. So here's the story behind the wedding too. I put a spreadsheet in because, again, nerd. We've made a spreadsheet for our bridal party. And so I titled the spreadsheet Bridal Party, put it into the Drive folder. My wife and I sat down one evening. We typed out all of our friends that we wanted to invite or wanted to be in the bridal party, closed my laptop, put it on the coffee table in front of us. And I'm not kidding, within 5 minutes, I got a text from my mom that said, "That's really nice that Rose is going to ask Jenny, who's my sister, to be in the wedding and to be a bridesmaid." And I was very confused because we really hadn't discussed this with anybody. And so I looked at my wife, or my fiance at the time, and I said, "Did you tell my mom that you're going to ask my sister to be in the wedding?" And she's like, "No, I didn't do that." She's like, "How'd she know?" I'm like, "I don't know." And then I realized she was in the folder. She saw a spreadsheet titled Bridal Party, and she got super nosy, and she double clicked on it, and she was able to read everything on that spreadsheet. Not that it really matters, because it was a bridal party, no big deal. But imagine if my sister wasn't on that spreadsheet. I think I would have got a little bit different text message from my mom about why wasn't my sister on the bridal party spreadsheet. So, it is saying if you put something in the folder, people are going to be able to see it. Okay, so that's just a word of caution. Now, here's something though that you can do to avoid that. So, like I said, it's a trickle down. So it's a hierarchy. So if you give the access at the top, you can also remove access in the middle. Okay, and so this is a little bit more advanced, but it can save you from some of that stuff. So let's go ahead and create another Google Doc. So you can see, because I shared this folder, it's going to give me a warning right away. It says, "Do you want to create this in a shared folder? The created item will be shared to the same people that are already in this folder." So it tells you right away, hey, whenever you make this, everybody else that's in this folder is going to be able to see it. You good with that? You say, "Yep, I'm good." Create and share. So this time we'll title this one Writer's Evaluation. So it's in the folder. You can see it's there. If I go back over to Writer, go back to the folder, give it a second. I'll just do a quick refresh because there it is. So Writer can see it. I'm in Writer's account right now. He can see that too. Okay, so both of us can see that right now. Both of us have editing rights to that right now. But I don't want Writer to have editing rights to his evaluation. I want him to have editing rights to the workshop outline, but I don't want him to have editing rights to his evaluation. I want him to just be able to see that evaluation. So what I'll do is go into that Google Doc, go to Share, and then just like we did with Kelsey earlier, I can take him and either change him to view only so he could see his evaluation, or I can straight up take it away and remove him from that document. And when I remove him, do you notice what went away when I did that? So the file is still in the folder, but the little two-person icon is no longer next to that because I removed his access. And then if I go back into the folder, again, we're in Writer now, it's gone. I still have it, but he can't see it anymore. So you can make adjustments as you kind of go down the folder, and you can change like who has access as it trickles down. Okay, so I can remove that from him. I still have it in there, but he can't see it. Okay, so again, maybe a little bit more advanced, but something you want to maybe keep in mind too, that if you don't want somebody to see it, you can take away their access, even if they have access to that top level folder. All right, so I'm running out of time. So I want to make sure I address a couple of more things, okay? The first one is that you can put literally any digital file type into Google Drive. You can upload pictures, you can upload videos, you can upload PDFs, you can upload Word documents, you can upload PowerPoints, you can upload it all into Google Drive, and you can have access to it anywhere, okay? So I'll often upload PDFs, be able to have them opened up, and they're there, okay? So to upload something into your Google Drive, you can use the new and then file upload, but what I actually like to show people is have your browser open in the background, and then either go to your Finder if you're on a Mac, or if you're on a PC, go to your My Computer and go to your Documents folder. And then in your Google Drive here, actually I'm in Writers, we want to make sure we get out of that. So I'm in my Google Drive. I can then take, so like here's a video. I can actually drag that, and that's a pretty big video. That would take a while to do that. So let's look at, these are all, see like the videos. Here's a GIF, okay? So this is a good example. So here's a GIF. I can take this GIF and just drag it and drop it, and then it uploads down here. Okay, so like I said, upload images. You can upload GIFs. You can also upload images. So like here's that headshot. So this is my headshot. Drag that up there. That'll take just a second. It depends on your internet speed, on how fast they go. So videos obviously take a little bit longer, but images are fairly quick. And then let's see. Do I have a Word document? Let's look. There we go. Okay, so here's a Word file, okay, that I can now want to upload to Drive. Okay, so I'm going to take this Word file, drag it, and drop it in. And then as it uploads, it is now in my Google Drive, which is awesome. And you can tell it's a Word file because my Google Docs have the Google Docs logo, but the Word file actually keeps the W next to it. So that tells me that it's a Microsoft Word file. Same thing happens for a PowerPoint. The P goes next to it. Excel, the big X goes next to it. So you can designate that that's a Word file. Now, I mentioned it earlier. I kind of teased it, that you could edit Word files without converting them. Okay, this is a relatively new feature, maybe within the last year. So if I wanted to edit this, I can just double click on it, and it loads in the Google Docs editor. But what happens is, if you look up at the top, it's going to have that blue thing right there that says .docx. And so it actually stays as a Microsoft Word file. And so if I was to edit something on here, close it out, and then take this Word file, right click, and download it as a .docx again, those changes would be saved. So I didn't have to like use Microsoft Word or Office 365 or anything to make those changes. I actually used Google to change it a Microsoft file, but it kept it as a Microsoft file. Kind of next level stuff, but I just want to make sure everybody knows you can do that. So you can save all sorts of file types up here. I share videos like this all the time. It's a really easy way to upload stuff, and if it's in the cloud, it stays in the cloud. Okay, and it stays up there, and it's good to go. You're able to access it from anywhere. Now, here's the last thing that I want to point out as we are rapidly running out of time. You can convert them, though, over to Google Docs. So if you're going from a Microsoft environment and you want to now enter into the Google world, you can right-click on any Word file that you have and say Open with Google Docs, and that'll actually convert it over to a Google Doc. Okay, so that .docx is not going to, oh, sorry, it did do that. File, save as Google Docs once you're in it. That's what you have to do. Sorry about that. So file, save as Google Docs, and then it'll convert it over to a Google Docs. So you see the docx is gone now. So you can convert them. The other thing is in settings. So up here in the top right corner of the screen, you can click on your settings and then go to settings for Google Drive. And there's actually an option here to convert uploads. And if you select that, any Word file or PowerPoint or Excel file that you drag into your Google Drive and drop will automatically be converted over to a Google file. So that saves a ton of time. If you're trying to like go from the Microsoft world into the Google world, you just check that box, and then all the files that you've edited before or you've created in Microsoft transition over into the Google world, and you don't have to really do anything. It just does it for you. I will say though, there's one thing that is a big hiccup: PowerPoint files. PowerPoints that are huge, like massive PowerPoints that have lots of videos embedded in them. Those do not play nice in the conversion. If it gets to a certain file size, they just don't convert. Like it just keeps failing over and over and over again. So just be aware of that. If you have a really big PowerPoint file, it might not convert over to a Google slideshow, but we can talk about that maybe when we do the Google Slides one. So, all right, I think I covered everything that kind of gives you a really good foundation for using Google tools. Oh no, I left out the one last big thing. I have 1 minute left, so I'm going to use it. Search. This is amazing. Like this is the number one, like I can't believe I almost forgot this. If you get a ton of stuff in your drive, or even if you don't have very much stuff in your drive, and you don't know where something is, Google was a search engine before it was Google all this stuff. So it's got search built into it. So you can go up and look for, like, let's just type in writer's evaluation. And if I type in writer, I can see all the different stuff that come up. That was maybe, and then I say writer's evaluation, and there it is. I can click on it, and it'll open it up. Here's the other thing that's really cool. If I don't know what the file's name is, but I know what I wrote about, I know it had something to do with the Civil War. And I just hit search on that, it'll actually scan all of the different text that's in the files for the word Civil War. And so it's not just doing a file name search, it's scanning the documents for it. So you can see my AP syllabus showed up. That does not have Civil War in the title, but I have a section and a unit on the Civil War. So if we went into the Google Doc, Civil War is in here. I can do a quick Control F, find Civil War. There it is. So you don't have to know the name of the file. You can just start typing what you think that file's about and give it basically some context clues, and then it'll find it. And then you can also click the drop down arrow and choose the different types. You're like, I know it's a document that had the Civil War in it. And if you select document and then search Civil War, it's only going to bring up Google Docs that have Civil War in them, or slideshows, presentations, spreadsheets, like you name it, you can search for it, folders, sites. Pretty cool. So the search feature is huge. You can also look for it by owner, location, date modified, has the words in it, or it's named this, shared with. I know I shared it with Kelsey, so I type in her account. It's like, I know I shared that with her, and it says this in there, and it'll just find those things. So the search feature is a absolute godsend when it comes to like trying to figure out where stuff is at. Because if you got a ton of junk in your Google Drive, you'll lose it even with your good organizational skills. Type it in, find it like that. So can't believe I almost forgot search. So glad I.
Another quick question for you.
Ask away.
When I toss something in the trash, sometimes I don't really intend it to be gone forever. Right.
Right.
Is this similar to my email where 30 days and it's gone for good?
Yep. So in the trash, items are deleted after 30 days. There's one little take backseat option that you have if you teach at a school. Okay. So if you teach at a school, nothing is ever deleted, truly ever deleted. Okay. So it looks like it's deleted. It is gone from here. But your tech department has what's called Google Vault. And so Vault actually saves everything. And so if you delete it, you could bring your tech guy brownies and say, hey, can you find this file that I deleted by accident? And then he can go in and he can find it and he can restore it for you. But it is like email where after 30 days, it is basically gone. It can work for kids too. So if a student accidentally deleted something and they didn't mean to and they cleared their trash out, the tech guy can also find that student's work. We actually did that. I did that when I was a tech guy for a couple of like special ed students who really didn't mean to, like it was an accident, and I went and found their stuff and brought it back. But also we didn't publicly broadcast that to the students because we didn't want to be taking up our time finding stuff that they shouldn't have deleted in the first place. So yeah, it is like 30 days gone.
Can you do me a favor? Can you toss something in there? I just want to see how we would know if it's
sure.
Am I guessing? Is there a way for us to?
Yeah. So let's delete the summer workshops outline. We don't need that anymore. So there's a couple of ways you can delete it. You can, when you're in the file, you can go to File and then move to Trash. And then you would just go to Docs home screen. So we'll talk about that when we do the Google Docs workshop. Or if you go into the folder, so you can see it's not in our folder anymore. And I'll delete the headshot too. So I could also right click on it in the folder and then just say remove. And then that'll remove it to trash. And then when I go to trash, it'll give me the trash date over here. And then you have to do the math from there. So it's not like quite a countdown of like on iPhones, it'll tell you like this has been in your deleted photos for 28 days. Like, so it's going to disappear in 2 days. It doesn't quite do that. It'll just say like, oh, this was trash on this date. And then you got to do the math to figure out when 30 days from that date is.
Thanks. That helps.
Yep. No problem. All right. Any other questions?
I guess my last one is when I think about my storage, we all have different storages and amounts. I sometimes up my amount of storage and I have to pay a monthly fee. Do you recommend that people do that?
So it depends, I think, on how much you're going to use and stuff like that. So you get 15 gig for free with a personal account. Okay. So with a personal account, you get 15 gigabits for free, which is a ton. But if you start uploading lots of photos and videos to like Google Photos, that now counts against your storage in your drive. Unfortunately, they changed that rule. And they also changed that now Google Docs, which did not used to count against storage, they also count against storage now too, although very, very minimally. Like you can see, like, that one that didn't have anything and it was 0 bytes, and so it doesn't take up a whole lot of space. But yeah, you can get towards that. Like my personal drive, I'm like floating at like 14 gig of 17 gig because I did a security check and got 2 free gig like 5 years ago or something like that. um and so yeah, like I think it's kind of, it just depends on how much you're uploading and using. I would say steer clear of videos if you can, because the videos take up the biggest amount of space. So if you're uploading lots of videos to be able to stream them from the cloud, that takes up a ton of space. And so like I've been going through and kind of cleaning up some videos that are just sitting in my Google Photos where they were, I don't even know what I was thinking when I took them. Like they have no sentimental value, so I remove them, and that helps clean that up. But I mean, if you've got, my mom, she's got, you know, decades of photos that she's uploading to Google Photos, and that takes up a lot of space. So she actually opened up another Google account just for all the pictures that she was scanning into Google Photos. So that way she had 15 gig just for her pictures, right? And then she can use her other Google account for all the other Google Drive stuff.
Your mom sounds like she has a smart son.
Yes, I know, right? She might have got that tip from somebody. I don't know who.
So one last question to kind of leave you. I know that for me at work, sometimes we're trying to share stuff that we want to actually share a link out to the community.
Mhm.
We want people to enjoy, but we want to know who viewed it.
Hmm.
I heard recently there's a couple of the different apps that allow you to track who views things and ones that don't. Do you know anything about that?
So there are a few. As far as like if we're just going to live in the Google world, one of the things that and this kind of shows more for like if I wanted to see if, and of course I deleted the one that Ryder had access to. Let's take it out of the trash, so that way it's back. Hopefully, let's see. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so one of the things you can do. So this is a really helpful for education actually too. So if I want to know. I've sent this out, or work or whatever, I guess. So like I've shared this out with Ryder. I want to know, did he even open it? Like, did he look at it? Okay. You can click on it and then go to the eye up in the top. And this is actually your view details. And then you can look at activity. And this will actually show you who's been in it and what they've done to that file. Okay. So that's a good way of kind of tracking like the activity on that particular file as it goes. So another good example, I have a blog post here. Not a good example because nobody actually looked at this one. So except me, I guess, my personal account. But
well, I guess we all need to go there afterwards, right? Go check out your blog.
Right? Yeah. I guess. So it's published on the web, and there, yeah, it's fine. But actually, I was like, oh, nobody. I didn't share this with anybody. I just shared a different file with them. Anyway, that's what I would use for that. There are some other like things out there. The one that I use for like click throughs, not so much to like. Not so much to actually track who did it, but like how many people actually viewed it. I use a URL shortener called Bitly, and that's my go-to one for that. So I actually have, it's pretty cool, and it's free. Like I've been using it now for years. And if I make a Bitly on something, let's say this one. So this is a SOPA outline. So this is an outline on a document that I share with friends. You can actually click on it, and anybody who types in the bit.ly, which makes the Google Doc much shorter. So it's bit.ly/SOPA outline. So if you type that in, it's going to go to the Google Doc, so if I paste that in, you can see it'll actually take me to, I guess it's a PDF. Same thing, it's in my Google Drive. So like I shared the Google Drive link there. And so now I can look at this though and see that on Friday, April 23rd, 7 people clicked on it, because I presented it on Friday, April 23rd. On May 7th, I got 20 clicks on that one because that was a bigger meeting. There was 28 people in that meeting, so I know 20 people were at least paying attention to me while I was talking. So those are kind of my two go-tos as far as that goes with like Google tools and like seeing who's been in them, who's accessed them, and that type of thing.
Wonderful, Ben. Thank you so much for coming. Any last tips or tricks or things you want to mention?
I would say like if you really want to become a good Google user, like just immerse yourself into it. Like dive in, start uploading things, start using it for your personal accounts, like for everything. Like that's honestly that's how you get better at it. Like especially if you're in education or you're in business and you're a little nervous getting into it because it's different than what you've been used to. Like open up a Gmail account, start using it, start using the Gmail account for this summer. You're having a barbecue or something like that. Like make the guest list in Sheets and share it with your husband, and say, hey, here's the guest list, and then now you're getting used to that sharing process and you're uploading things like, that's kind of my biggest tip when it comes to like getting you familiar with Google Drive is just start using it, for everything. Jump headfirst into it. So
Well, wonderful. And I know that we are digging deeper into each of these pieces of Google
yeah,
Drive. You have Google
absolutely.
Drive, then you have Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Forms, all of these things that are Google apps, right?
So many things. Yes, there is just so much fun to be had in the Google sphere. So yeah, come back for more.
Well, looking forward to it. And I would recommend for anybody that has deeper questions like, hey, I walked away, this was great, but I need this more for my usage. Let us know your questions and maybe we'll have a part two. Thank
Absolutely. All right.